Tuesday afternoon. I'm Elizabeth. Thanks so much for joining us for this next hour. We got a lot going on. We got local, we got national news, a lot of weather, a lot of severe weather in our area, and obviously Hurricane Erin. We want to check in with Brian with Fox Weather right now just to kind of give us a sense of what's going on with Hurricane Erin. Hey, Brian, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, sounds good. So I can't hear you in my IFB, Jim, just so you know that part of it. So just tell us the latest with Hurricane Erin.
A little bit to the left, in other words, closer to the U.S. East Coast than was originally forecast, but within the range of normal errors, the way the cone works. You know, it weakened some today, down to 105 miles per hour, but the strength of the winds are not the issue here. The issue is this is an increasingly giant hurricane, and big hurricanes move a lot of water. So the threat from this will be, yes, some fringe effects, especially in North Carolina, southeastern Virginia, but as the storm moves to the north and it starts moving this water toward the East Coast, all the way from North Florida all the way to New England, and especially in the Carolinas and the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic, this is going to be damaging, we think, along the coast. I think you're going to see some houses going into the water, severe erosion, very, very, very dangerous surf conditions for the rest of this week, all the way up the East Coast. Really begins later today and especially tomorrow.
I was going to say, Brian, what's the timetable when we see the cone and then we see the days, or maybe like Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday morning? What's the timetable when it's going to hit these states? Do we know?
Yeah, well, so it's beginning, like I said, there are really two parts to this. One is this issue of the water along the coast, which is going to be the big news because it's the whole East Coast just about. South Florida is out of it, and maybe Maine is not so big a deal. But everybody else is going to get these pounding waves, high water, up to 3 or 4 feet above normal, and then with 15 and 20-foot waves on top of that. So this is a big deal in the Mid-Atlantic, a little less so farther north, but damaging still. So that begins today into tonight, just slowly increases south to north as the storm moves north. The other part of it is the part we usually think of as the blowing wind and, that kind of thing. That's never going to be terrible, but that's going to affect mostly eastern North Carolina beginning tomorrow, especially late in the day and overnight into Thursday. So that's eastern North Carolina and Virginia mostly affected by the edge effects of the storm, where the worst of it will be well offshore.
And how far inland does something like this go? Obviously, the people on the coast, those homes right on the coast, obviously, they're at threat more. But how far inland does this thing move?
Very, very little. People inland, people 10 or 20 miles inland are really going to have a breezy day. It's no big deal at all. This is really a coastal event right at the coast because the water is the big deal. And then in the part, if you think about North Carolina, it sticks out into the ocean, right? So it's just closer to the storm, so it's going to get these edge effects in terms of wind. But the wind and associated weather really shouldn't do any damage. The issue is these homes that are right on the beach, Cape Hatteras, for example. We've seen them washed into the water over the last several years, and it looks like, unless something surprising happens, more are going to be washed in as this storm goes by here this week.
Obviously, every storm has its own identity. Every hurricane has its own identity. But does this feel like any other storm in recent years to you?
Well, we've had big hurricanes that were not especially strong. Hurricane Ike that hit the Houston area and wiped out what's called the Bolivar Peninsula, which is kind of east of Houston, but right there, it's a regular place. It was just wiped completely. Now all the houses there are big up on stilts. Another giant hurricane that wasn't very strong was Sandy, that did all that damage along the New Jersey, New York, New England coastlines because it was big, not because it was strong. This is going to be a big storm, and so it's going to do that coastal kind of damage more than the wind damage that we tend to visualize when we think of hurricanes.
And where are we in hurricane? Are we kind of smack dab in the middle of hurricane season, and how's it been going so far?
No, it's only just barely begun.
Barely
I mean,
begun.
the 15th of August is when we usually think of hurricane season really kind of kicking in. That's when it becomes more likely to have a storm. The average first hurricane forms on the 11th of August. No, the peak of this is in September and October.
So does
the peak
this...
is really in the middle of September. So we got a ways to go,
Yeah.
long ways to go.
I know you don't have a crystal ball, Brian, but does this particular storm, does it give you any kind of sense of what the season's going to be like over the next couple of months?
It really doesn't. I mean, this is a typical thing that happens now that we're in hurricane season. We get a storm and it moves north. Thankfully, it's not going to affect land directly. But as we look at the weather pattern, especially the ocean patterns this year, the likelihood is that storms will form closer to the U.S. because the water is unusually warm off the southeast coast, and it's just about average on the other side of the ocean. So we expect more storms to form closer to the U.S., and also some indication that to be more likely to form late in the season because of this El Nino, La Nina thing you've probably heard about, talk about, affects your weather in Chicagoland as well, but different kind of way, obviously, than in the tropics. But the thinking is that we'd be more likely to get a La Nina